Chris, what do you think? Will we just jump right into it?
Yeah, why not? Why
21
not?
now?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. So, Chris, you're very, very welcome, and thanks so much for coming to talk to us today. On behalf of Startup Society, you're very welcome. And overall, this whole day is the Student Startup Day. So, in the past, we would have done in-person startup weeks in November, and it would have always been based in Dublin. So, this is a great opportunity to meet students from all over the country, but also virtually. We're only adapting to it. So, give us a chance. And yeah, thanks, Chris.
Not at all. Listen, good to be here. Thanks very much for inviting me, Cathal.
Super. So, Chris, I think we should just start by you telling us what Spark Crowdfunding actually is, and then maybe just what crowdfunding is in general.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, we're Spark Crowdfunding, and we help the flow of investment, if you like, from a big group of investors into young startup businesses. And by the very nature, that's a crowd. It's not just one or two people. It could be 102 or 1,002 people. So we're just facilitators. So we have a big bank of investors. Most of whom are Irish. There's probably about 80, I think it's about 82% that are based here in Ireland. The other kind of 10 are kind of in the UK, and another 10 are kind of dotted around the world. But yeah, most of them are, we facilitate the investment from that group into young businesses, and we've done many of them now in the 2 and a half years that we've been around.
Super, thanks for that. So your role at the moment, and you can correct me on this, is you're co-founder and CEO of Spark Crowdfunding. So it'd be really great to hear, like, how did you get into this role and how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm an engineer from my first degree, and I worked as an engineer for many years. But I mean, I made very small. I mean, when I say very small, I mean very small investments into companies, over my time. And so I've always kept a weather eye on kind of the startups that are coming through. But it was incredibly expensive to do so, and you were paying as much in professional fees to actually get it over the line as you were to actually invest, particularly at the amounts that I was investing. So I kind of saw what was happening in the UK with regards to the crowdfunding over there. I thought, well, just why doesn't it exist here in Ireland? So I decided that it'd be a good idea to actually try and bring it over here. So I started investigating and doing my research, and went, okay, well, listen, let's give it a whirl. So we set it up 2.5 years ago, and it's been a great experience since. And we've in that time we've raised over 3 million euros for about 15 different companies in that time, and I've got bigger and better plans to do more and more as the years go on now.
Okay, great. Just disclaimer, I use Spark Crowdfunding myself, guys. It's a really easy service to use. And there's two things that stand out to me are it gives people like myself an opportunity to invest in companies that you wouldn't be able to unless you're a venture capitalist. But then also it gives companies an opportunity to get funding who may not have had that opportunity. So Christopher, do you see many people like myself investing, or who is your stereotypical investor on the Spark crowdfunding platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we like to think that it democratizes investment. As you said yourself, heretofore it really was investing in small young businesses was really for the VCs and the private equity houses and high net worths, and it was very difficult for anybody else to do so. So crowdfunding really opens it up to kind of anybody investing. I mean, the minimum amount that we have as an investment is 100 euros. So anybody can, if they've got 100 euros that's just spare, can invest into any business, and hopefully that 100 euros will turn out to be 200 euros or 300 euros or 400 euros by the time that company sells in 2 or 3 or 4 years time. And yeah, that's what we're facilitating. So at the moment, we have literally people who put in 100 euros, of course, but we have people who put in 100,000 euros for each investment as well. And it really is the difference, and I mean, obviously there aren't too many people who can afford to put 100,000 euros into a campaign, but nevertheless, we have high net worths on the platform as well. It's quite revealing, actually, even though we have such a spread of investments, as I say, from the very small to the very large. But the actual average is about €2,000, and and it depends on kind of the campaign they're running, but that seems to be about an average of the investment going into businesses. So and obviously that is very much towards the smaller end. So there are many small investors and one or two large investors that invest into a round, and that's how it tends to work.
Great, yeah. And another thing I've noticed is even if the investment amounts are very small, the people who invest really feel part of the company, and it really helps them buy into the story, and they really get behind the brand, which is great. And
Absolutely.
just
That's what I think that can you see that tribe building? That's what
okay.
that's what it's about. I mean, you're building a tribe. Everyone has skin in the game, and of course, these people are going to talk about that business, to their friends and family, and say, "Oh, you should have a look at XYZ Limited. It's very brilliant. It's great company. I've invested into it." And of course, that starts building more and more people kind of being aware of this company. And whether it's a B2C or B2B company, hopefully it will get more people actually using the product and therefore driving your investment up. And that's ultimately what you want to do as an investor, of course, as well.
Yeah, so crowdfunding does wonders for your net promoter score. That's the summary there.
Yeah.
Just on that point, it's actually not obvious to a lot of people how Spark crowdfunding actually makes money and how you turn over revenue. Would you like to give us like a high level overview on that?
Sure. Well, it's very simple. We don't charge the investors anything. So if you're an investor, it's free to use. You come along and put in your €100 or €1,000, whatever it happens to be. Whereas, if you were investing through, I don't know, Davies or Goodbody's, then there'd be a fee normally attached to that investment. So there's no fee for the investor. So we take our fee from the investee, the company starting the business. So if they're looking for, let's say, 100,000, we will take our slice from that, and that's normally 7%. And that's our fee, and that's how we that's how we turn a buck.
Perfect, thanks for that. Another question we got from one of the members of the society was, have you seen any emerging trends during COVID on Spark crowdfunding or just in the funding landscape in general?
It's funny you ask, actually, because it's in the last 8 months, we've seen a massive climb in people investing, number of people kind of wanting to get investments. And it really has been a very good time for Spark, which, is counterintuitive in many cases, obviously, but companies are needing investment, and that's what they come to us for that. But we found that people aren't spending as much money as they used to, because they're not going out, they're not going to restaurants, they're not spending money kind of on other things, they're not going away on holiday. So people are seem to be getting more and more money that's available for an investment, and because they've got free time as well, because they're not commuting into work as much. They said that we found that a lot more people are deciding that, okay, listen, I'm going to invest some of my my money and my savings, and they're choosing Spark crowdfunding to do that. And so it's been a win-win on both sides of the market, because obviously we have to have an increased number of investors for an increased number of companies that we have on the other side, and we have to balance those quite carefully. So as I say, it's been good on both sides, and we're very happy for that, of course. And so we've seen a marked increase in activity all the way through, and hopefully that continues for us as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that people have more money, and this is one of the places that they are spending it. Chris, is there anything else that shocked you just from your role or being involved with Spark crowdfunding, just in general?
One of the things that's kind of, I suppose, shocked me most is the passion at which most of the people who come to us have about their business. And it really is telling, actually, and necessary as well, for that matter. So if you are thinking of starting up a business, you do have to have that serious passion about what you do, not only because you will have some very, very good highs, but you'll have some incredibly big lows as well when you're running a business. And if you don't have that passion to keep that drive going, then the company won't survive. So you have to have an incredible amount of passion, to drive that business forward and to keep it sustained through the good times and the bad. And it really is very telling to actually see all of these companies, because I speak to them on a daily basis, all these new companies that are coming through. And yeah, they have amazing passion, and and obviously want to drive their business forward, and it's brilliant to see.
Great. You mentioned passion there, and we'd be really interested to hear, like, what are the most important characteristics you see yourself for someone starting a business?
They have to have, if you're starting a business, the passion is certainly one of them. Domain knowledge is very important as well. You've got to, if you're not actually from that particular sector, you've got to do some serious research into it before you actually decide to go into it, as I did, because although I was happened to have been an investor of sorts over the years, again at a very low level, I had to do some serious investigations as to what the behind Spark and how it would actually work. So I developed that, and that's how I gained that domain knowledge. But you also have to have a good team behind you. You have to have a serious amount of a kind of traction as well. Stuff that you don't actually have to pay for necessarily, but nevertheless you have to have started the research into the business. You have to start the access into the markets and understanding those markets very, very well before you actually start the process of raising money.
Great. There's a concept that we talk about a lot in startups, which is product market fit. But more and more recently, we've heard a lot about founder market fit as well, where you're finding the right entrepreneur to tackle a certain problem in the market. And I think you really hit that on the head there. Another thing that you mentioned in the previous question I asked you was that you talk to customers regularly. How important do you think that is just in your day-to-day operations running a business?
Well, again, it's like the both sides of the market. We have to engage with both sides, and so we'll have engagement with the investors, obviously, on one side, and we'll have engagement with the startups on the other. We're very selective with the type of the number and the type of companies that go onto our platform, as you can probably imagine. So we only probably put up about 1 in 10, 1 in 11 companies. So it has to be a good fit for the business, and it has to be a good fit for our investors as well. And that's ultimately what we're doing. We're not investing in kind of mom and pop type businesses. These are highly scalable, internationally trading businesses in most cases. And because of that, we have to make sure that we are, speaking to the right company. So yeah, we do engage with them on a regular basis, and we'll be talking to them. They might not be right this moment, but they'll be getting. But that we can probably see that at some stage in the future, 6 months, 12 months down the line, it would be a very good business for Spark to actually have on its website. So okay. So we make sure that we are talking to the promoters, making sure that they understand what we need, and making sure that that we're getting what what they need as well from the business, and making sure that the fit is right, and making sure that we've got a good amount of deal flow coming through, as you can imagine, because obviously not only are the companies live on the site at the moment, but we've got a pipeline of dozens of companies that are in the wings at various stages that will come onto the platform in the coming months.
Super. That's actually really interesting. I'd love to just dig into that just a little bit more. You mentioned that only 1 in 10 companies actually get through to the funding stage with Spark Crowdfunding. And one of the criteria you mentioned was scalability, especially internationally. What else do you look for in these companies? And I was really interested to hear that it's not like a yes or no answer. Some of the companies just aren't a right fit at the moment, and you'll go back to them later on. So what are the criteria?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are many elements of the criteria, but I mean, having a good team behind the founder is very key to this as well. But not only that, we need to make sure that there is a market out there, and that the market is sizable enough. We need to make sure that well, I mean, there are most companies that we have on the platform are in revenue and are making some money already, but there are others that don't, and we have to weigh that up quite carefully as well. So, I mean, we raised some money for 3 companies, just a couple of months ago, 2 of which were in revenue, sorry, 2 of which were pre-revenue, 1 of which was in revenue. And, we managed to get the 2 that were in revenue funded before the one that was, we managed to get the 2 that were pre-revenue funded before we got the one that was actually in revenue funded. It really depends on the technology behind it as well, and how suitable it is for an investor, and when the investor thinks that they're going to get their money back from their investment as well. So there's a number of elements that we look at when assessing a company, and as I say, there are dozens of, I suppose, really, if you go down into the minutiae of it as well.
Super. Thanks for the insight there. We have about 10 minutes left, so I am going to jump into some of the questions I've been getting. One of them here is pretty similar to what we've just been talking about. It's any advice for startups creating a funding campaign that have a competitor on your platform? Interesting.
We've never actually put up a competing platform, competing company onto a platform, and I imagine that we probably won't as well. Not to say that we won't do it sequentially, but we won't actually have the 2 live at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so for example, if there's I don't know, just off the top of my head, 2 brewers, for example, yes, we could have quite happily put them onto the platform, but just at different times, I'd imagine. But in the preparation for actually getting onto the platform, there's a lot of due diligence that we have to do on the business. There are 3 or 4 main elements that you have to prepare, one being a video, the other one being a pitch deck, and the business plan, and a few other elements to it as well. So there are a number of things that have to be done in order to actually get onto the platform as well. So we will, there's an application form, we assess the application. If that's a go, then all of this extra collateral then needs to be collated together, and before we go live, and that's how we would do that. But we wouldn't really put 2 competing companies live on the platform. We're not like some of the other crowdfunding platforms. We handhold a lot of the companies all through the process. It's not as if we just let the floodgates open and anybody can put any kind of campaign up there. We have to protect our investors. They're the ones that pay our wage, really. And if we're putting a lot of dross, the investors' way, they'll easily get switched off and kind of go, listen, I'm not going to waste my time looking at Spark because there's a load of rubbish on there. But no, so we have to make sure that the quality of the campaigns and the quality of the companies seeking funding are very, very high, so that we can keep our investors coming back going, okay, well, listen, I'm going to have a look at that particular campaign. I know the others have been very good, so I'll have a look at this one too.
Yeah, okay, great. And I can also attest to that, guys. Spark does a lot of the heavy lifting for you when it comes to the due diligence process of the company, and they give you plenty of reading material to sink your teeth into to really understand the business before you think about investing. So I am going to look at another question here. How much information and backing should you have before approaching a crowdfunding website like yourself?
Well, I mean, you can have nothing, and we will give you, as Cathal just said, we will give you the necessary forms and lists of things that you need to get ready. I mean, first of all, you can only do this if you're a limited company. You can't do it if you're sole trader, so you need to be incorporated. You need to have a pitch deck. You need to have a tax clearance certificate. All of these things that need to be collected together in order to produce a package that we will take on board and go, okay, well, all of these things are now ticked off, and we now know that they are who they say they are, and that they've got their ducks in line. So there's a lot to be done, but you don't need to necessarily have all of that done. We'll give you the information, and you can then go on and have a look and get it yourself afterwards.
Great. Guys, keep the Q&A coming in. I'm just going to jump back to a question I think is focused around DCU, because I see a lot of DCU students, familiar names on the call. Some of the DCU students might be familiar with the bikes on campus. They're run by a company called Moby, and Moby has just recently launched a Spark crowdfunding campaign. Chris, would you like to talk to us about this and how successful it's been, even though I don't think it's finished yet, has it?
No, it's not finished. It's still got, I don't know how many days left to go, 25 or so, something like that. But it's 200% funded. So it was looking for 300,000. It's now over 600,000. And they're still taking investment and will do for a while longer as well. So they've been amazingly successful on the campaign, and they have a big cohort of users and have kind of obviously put their the crowdfunding out to these people as well as to our own bank of investors as well, and have done remarkably well. So as Cathal was saying, they're a bike sharing company with a good bit of tech behind them, and hope to be rolling out not just to Dublin, but to other cities around the country as well, and further afield, not just here here in Ireland.
Great. So we have another question. This one's from Luke in chat. How often do businesses you promote on Spark Crowdfunding succeed hugely or fail?
Well, our success rate so far this year in 2020 has been 100%. So every campaign that we've put up has reached its target. And again, that goes back to the fact that we're very picky and are putting campaigns up that we believe in and think that will do very well. But overall, in the 2.5 years that we've been going, our success rate is about 78, 79%. So almost 4 out of every 5 companies that we put onto the platform are being funded. So that's how that works. Most of them just reach their target and just a little bit above, but we've had a number that have gone way beyond. Moby is one of them, which is 200% or 200 and something now. We had Willola, who did that was back about 1.5 years ago, who did 180%, and so there's been a number that have gone considerably above their target as well, which is great. And obviously the companies have to give more equity away, but they're happy to do that, and they get the publicity around it as well, which is great for them too.
Okay, perfect. We have 5 minutes left, so I have a few more questions. If I was deciding between a few companies on your website, what would you say to look for as a deciding factor between companies? Interesting question. One
of the things that we try and advocate for investors is to have a portfolio approach to this. As Cathal has said, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting and kind of sifting out all of the less than attractive businesses. So the companies that we're putting onto the platform, we think, at least anyway, are reasonable businesses. So rather than just picking out one and putting everything on 16 red, you spread out your bets across the businesses. And so your investments, rather than put 1,000 all into one, you put 100 into each, and hope all of them kind of succeed. Now, all of them won't succeed because we know that probably 5 out of 10 won't be here next year, but that's just the very nature of startup investment. But that number 6 will probably just wash its face, number 7 will do 2x, number 3 will do 5x, and you're hoping that number 10 will do 20x. And that's the one that really pays for all of the other investments that perhaps you've not that you've not done so far. So that's what I would advocate. So rather than go in and try and pick the winner, you actually go in and put just a smaller amount in each of the campaigns, and that's the best way of doing it.
Great. So there's a term that we hear used a lot in startups. It's called return the fund. So there might be 25 companies in a fund, but the one good one returns enough investment for all of the other ones, even if they just break even. So exactly. We have one more question here. How long, on average, would you predict it takes investors to see an increase in their investments?
Yeah, that's a good question. It really depends. Sometimes these companies will be bought out in 3 years' time, but sometimes it will be 10 years, and it really, so the money that you put into these companies really will be there for the long haul. It's not something that you're going to get out in 6 months or 8 months time. So you put this money in, you probably forget about it even, and hopefully you've stored the paperwork safely somewhere. But yeah, you'll get a nice return in 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years time. But most of the companies, they're looking for an exit in 5 years. They are, well, within 5 years, shall we say? So that's what people are going to hope for.
Great. So we just have one final question, and that is, what resources would you recommend to someone interested in starting companies?
So, well, what resources did you say? For
resources, so like maybe books, podcasts, courses, anything like that.
Oh well, keep an eye on all the daily newspapers. Obviously, that you'll get an awful lot of information from that. We've got a huge amount of information on our blogs that we've got, so you can have a look at that. But I mean, there's some great books out there. I'm just looking at hacking growth at the moment as well, which is great, and that's what you really that's something that you should be able to kind of get some information from as well. So there's loads of information, and I'm sure you as a society kind of have a huge amount of information in there too. So yeah, there's information falling out of everywhere. One of the Enterprise Ireland is a great resource for it as well, of course, as you'd expect. And yeah, they've got many documents on there that you can kind of get an awful lot of information from.
One of the books you mentioned there, Hacking Growth, I can highly recommend that to anyone who's looking for a Christmas reading. But Chris, other than that, is there any final words or anything else you didn't get to say that you'd love to shout out?
Well, I mean, if you and I presume there's a double element to the society that you have there. The people interested in investing and people interested in starting a business. I mean, either would be delighted to kind of have a chat with you if you've got a business that is growing and kind of you think that it might be suitable for crowdfunding, and there are many different varied companies that would be delighted to have a chat with you. Might not be quite ready at the moment, but nevertheless, it might be good in 6 months or a year's time, and we'll still be here, obviously, and hopefully able to give you to fund you at that stage. So yeah, get in touch with us early. We'd be delighted to have a chat with you, read your business plan, and see what you're doing, and seeing how it might work, and whether it would be suitable for the investors as well. But yeah, I just welcome you to kind of get in touch with us. We'd be delighted to talk to you.
Great. So you heard that, guys. Spark Crowdfunding is open to building long-lasting relations with entrepreneurs. And Chris, I just really want to thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been really, really great, and I hope everyone else got as much out of it as I did.
Not at all. Listen, good to speak to you, Cathal. Thanks very much indeed for having me on. Speak to you again soon. Cheers now.
Thanks so much. Bye now.
Bye-bye.